with angel hair and ice cream castles in the air and feather canyons everywhere. But now they only block the sun. They rain and they snow on everyone. So many things I would have done, but clouds got in my way. I've looked at clouds from both sides now, from up and down, and still somehow.
Hello, Music Multiverse listeners, and welcome to Beyond Your Radio. It's catalog review show time in this month of February, just kicking off. It's February 11th. And of course, we're going to do legendary singer-songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, beloved Canadian female, and that would be Joni Mitchell. I'm joined today by panelist Jeff Crichton, who would know more than I about Joni Mitchell, her career, selling her albums, the whole shebang. So I will let him continue on.
Okay, so welcome everybody. Sit back and enjoy, because Joni is one of the greatest artists of all time. And for me, she's the greatest female artist ever. And Roberta Joan Anderson is the most important and influential female artist ever. That's what I have written down here. Joni Mitchell was born 81 years ago in Fort Macleod, Canada. And at age 11, she and her family moved to Saskatchewan, where she always said that's where she was from. Her wonderful songs have been covered by many artists over the years. And years ago on YouTube, I wound up seeing a black and white performance by her from 1965 on a show called Let's Sing Out, which was a Canadian folk program that I talked to a few people, and because we get Canadian TV here in Buffalo, and talking to a couple of people, they said, yes, we remember those shows.
Okay.
So Let's Sing Out. So
Let's Sing Out. I never looked that up.
Yeah. So her songs have been covered by many, many, many. And probably her most famous song, when we first heard her, really a big hit from her, is when Judy Collins had a hit with Both Sides Now. But Barbra Streisand has covered her songs. Herbie Hancock has covered her songs. In fact, he put out an album in 2007, Letters to Joni, which I actually enjoyed that album more than her release Shine, her own release of that year.
Her own release, yeah.
Yeah, the Herbie record was phenomenal. And Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, as a band and individually, they covered songs by Joni, and she even had a relationship with Graham Nash for a couple of years. She's influenced so many other artists with her style, especially her songwriting. She began as a folkie, as I said, in Western Canada, and morphed into a jazz artist by the mid-'70s. And she's played with, when she morphed into the jazz scene, she wound up playing with a who's who of jazz players like Jaco Pastorius, Herbie Hancock, Pat Metheny, Wayne Shorter, and Tom Scott. And many of those artists performed on multiple albums of hers.
And they didn't become bored.
Yeah, right. So Joni's a poet, she's a painter, she's a musician, and there's only one Joni. And she stands high above just about every musical artist on the planet. And I was blessed to work a few of her albums in the mid-'80s. And God bless Brandi Carlile for bringing her out at Newport a couple of years ago, because Joni had retired, and Brandi said, I need you to be part of this. And so she brought her out, and Joni's shown her face a few times. She actually performed a couple weeks ago, the night before the Grammys, when they had that special show in LA to raise money for the fire.
Yeah, the fire. Yeah.
And so she came out and she did Both Sides Now. And there's a picture of a great new super group called Joni, Stills, and Nash. Um, and so love Joni Mitchell. She has many. She's just in a league by her own. There's Joni, and then there's everybody else.
It's a high standard, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm with you. I don't think there is a solitary artist in the music industry that is as honest to the recording as the process is Joni.
Mm-hmm.
I think her counterpart might be Neil Young. It's a one take, it's a this take, it's what it is, right?
Right, and they beat to their own drummer and do what they want without anybody telling them what to do.
Yeah, that it did. Well, we'll get into these 19 albums. That's quite an astounding feat, right?
Yeah.
Even when I'm listening and maybe I'm not as enthralled by something I'm hearing and it's wrong in my ear to her, or her fit, her playing or not playing, the producer being a mental midget maybe, or the entire record company trying to push something that in a category for continued relevance when it doesn't seem right. It was still her.
Mm-hmm.
It was something about every record in lyrical or delivery has that moment when you continue to revel and remember that she is probably, arguably, the greatest female singer-songwriter in music history.
Absolutely.
And there are people that I'd love to say had that chance and to approach that, and they wavered. They decided that money was more important, and other things, right? And Joni, music was more important. The process was more important, and trying to get a guy was just a little bit below that. So when she got that guy, things changed a bit too. But that's
yeah.
This is 39 years, 19 albums. That's a lot.
Sure is.
Obviously, we all know how the 70s and the late 60s, early 70s roll. They wanted an album every bloody year. That's they really ran those people rough, but she survived it with beautiful albums. There are only a handful of artists that survived, thrived, and had a connection or a generational impact than her. But I also think for musicians, her catalog's easier.
Yeah,
I think they that's why she gets. For music listeners, this is hard. Many panelists wanted to be on this show, and they didn't make it. They didn't think they could hold it. They absorbed it as well, and it's a lot. She's not just a folk artist.
no, and you can't dip into her catalog in a short period of time.
No.
You need a lot of those records to grow.
Yep.
To live with, and thankfully, I've lived with them since she came on the scene.
Really. Yeah, and I think that's going to be part of why I'm liking this idea of the show. I think somebody said to me on the outskirts of the program, and not a panelist, somebody outside, they go, I mean, how comfortable are you doing a Joni Mitchell show? Not as comfortable as the guy who's coming on with me. I said, but that leads to someone like me. I mean, our ages are not that different, you and I. But there's going to be people younger than us, right? And how do they?
Yeah.
And this is one that you have to work to find the truest appreciation of the catalog. There's a songwriting intelligence here that goes far beyond people love catchy, right? And people, and if it's not always going to land that way, right?
Right.
And I mean, I liken to Sting, who I think he's said many times over, Joni Mitchell. But he's always, when he said, I go, well, when you listen to something new, what are you looking for? Well, I want it to catch me right away. He's not being honest. He's willing to sit there with a professional, with somebody, right? And I think that's some of the problem today where, listen, with me, you know how many new albums I listen to a year, over 500. You're somewhere close to 500. How do you get into 19 albums of Joni Mitchell at that point too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You spend a boatload of time like I did.
Yeah.
But okay, Blue is one of the greatest female albums ever made, if not the number one female album ever made. You know, it's a trendsetter. It's a benchmark in the genre that has yet to be even closely. I don't think I can't. Nico Case, Carole King. There are people that it came close. Boy, they came close. It is a perfect record.
It is, yeah. Carole King, yeah, absolutely. And Carole King was writing songs before Joni.
Yeah.
And you know, for the younger people that are out there, if you're into Belinda Carlisle, right?
Oh no, Brandy Carlisle.
Brandy Carlisle, yeah, not Belinda.
Although you know,
although the Go-Go's.
Hey, I like Belinda.
Yeah. But Brandy, if you're into Brandy tips her hat to Joni.
Yes.
Regularly, and Brandy is fantastic in her own right, and she might be my favorite female artist of the last 10 years.
Yeah. She would fall into that mix. Yeah.
Yep.
And definitely influenced by her big time. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. So we got 19 records. We're going to go 5, 5, 5, and 4, which means that you'll do 4, 3, 2, 1 at the end. I'm going to let you start because you will have the more, let's just, when we say this, I'm going to say, Jeff's opinion matters way more than mine in this, but my age, you know, and my position and the amount of music, I'm still in awe of this woman. I went to the library and picked up the anthology.
Okay.
And went through that, and there's an appreciation too for there is a difference between her and an album and her live. You know that needs to be.
Well, there's 4 anthologies.
Yeah.
I
don't know which one this one was. I didn't really take.
And they're all cool.
Yeah. And the recording too. This is another thing when we do this. You know, this is 1960s. 1970s, 1980s, 1990s, 2000s. So production, you know, you have to be aware of, wow, that's pretty impressive for that time. And something I talked about on a show recently is we got an acoustic guitar and we got a vocalist. It's a very hard thing to record because the vocalist's voice comes off on the guitar. And they can't separate things like they used to back, you know, like they couldn't back then.
Right.
Now, thanks to some technology and I guess AI, according to Daniel Lanois the other night with Rick Beato talking, they can do it. But that was not the luxury you had back then. So it's a takeover or placing the mics differently and really trying your ass off to record these things. So, All right. Anything else? We're going to.
All right. Ready to rock.
All right. You're 19, 18, 17, 16, and 15. And at any pace, any stories, whatever you so like. Okay.
So my 19 is going to be one of the albums I worked.
Okay.
1985's Dog Eat Dog. Okay. Joni painted the cover. Like I said, she's you know, an artist as well as a singer and a songwriter. And a poet. I worked this album and I enjoyed working it. The only drawback for me was she was trying to do, you know, in the mid-'80s, the electronica thing was going on. You know, she had Thomas Dolby do a couple things on that record, and it's not my thing. I didn't think she needed that. But you know, the opening track, we worked Good Friends, the song she sang with Michael McDonald. That was enjoyable, that track. You know, the title track and Impossible Dreamer is a really good song as well off that record. You know, the tour, that tour was fantastic. And it was a successful tour. And her, you know, the lyrics on the album were phenomenal. Some of the music for me, not so much. So that would be my number 19.
Okay.
Okay, number 18 would be the album, her ninth album that came out in December of '77, Don Juan's Reckless Daughter. Um, that album's grown on me a little bit in time, but when it first came out, I felt like, what the heck is she doing here? Because it followed up like a wonderful, one of the best albums she ever did, Hijira.
Yeah.
And so this was a follow up to that, and I felt like, what the heck? But
I love it.
But as I've grown older and my musical tastes have matured, I've grown to like it and I love it. Jericho's a great song. The lengthy Paprika Plains is interesting, even though it's like 18 minutes.
Yeah,
but the best song on the record is Dreamland, and Dreamland is a phenomenal song. And the first time I ever heard that song was when because she wrote that song, I think when she was on the Rolling Thunder Review tour. And so she gave that song to Roger McGuinn, who put it on his incredible record, Card of Rose.
Yeah.
So that's my 18 is Don Juan's Reckless Daughter. 17 was her final record, Shine. Which nice record. She'd been away for such a long time. She hadn't done a record in 9 years, 8 years, something like that.
Yeah, and then even those that were redo of material, right? So
yeah. But it was her first studio album in a long time. It's a sparse record, and there was stuff on there like the album cover shows. Yeah, I think she was trying to incorporate like some choreography in that, and I think she was doing it maybe in hopes that it would become a ballet. But I liked it. It's an uplifting record. Nothing. It's not a downer. So Shine would be 17. 16 would be Mingus, her record that came out in June of '79. That was her 10th album. It followed Don Juan's Reckless Daughter. And so, being a Joni fan, I just said, like, gotta have it. Even after Don Juan's Reckless Daughter, I felt like, okay, you got to do something else. Did you really need to make a double album? And then she goes and she connects with Charles Mingus, the great jazz bass player who's dying, and let's do a record together. So she's got like 2 or 3 originals on that album. All the rest are Mingus songs. And she ends with a great version of Goodbye Pork Pie Hat. But still, she's got Jocko, Herbie, Wayne, Peter Erskine playing drums on that album. That's when she was morphing into like trying to do poppy, folky jazz. This was a complete jazz record, like all the way. So that would be 16 for me. 15 would be Both Sides Now.
Oh.
And which to me is like another jazz record in her catalog. Jazz standards, classic Joni songs as well. There's songs that were performed with an orchestra, kind of like almost like a jazz orchestra. Every time I hear that record, from the very first time, I thought, like, this is Joni, and it could be behind her in a different era. It could be the Duke Ellington Orchestra.
It's very true.
I thought of that the first time I listened to that, but Peter Erskine is drumming again. Herbie Hancock is along for the ride again, and Mark Isham plays on this record too. And so that would be 15. Would be Both Sides Now.
Yeah. And of course it ends on Both Sides Now, does it not?
Yeah.
Which is my favorite Joni Mitchell song, I think.
That's because you looked at life from both sides.
Yeah.
No.
And then Phil Collins tried both sides of the story, but that didn't work out so well.
No.
All right. So again, deep dive, right? Amidst everything else I'm doing. My number 19 is identical to yours.
Oh, no
Dog
kidding.
Eat Dog is absolutely an 80s catastrophe to me. She got seduced by the dark side of synth. Not the Sith Lord, but then that Synth Lord. Oh my gosh, I'm playing my own game now. Thomas Dolby. And
Yeah,
I know,
he's not on the whole record.
no, but he produced the whole record.
No,
No, which one did he produce? Because he
he
produced one.
produced, he produced a few songs on it.
He produced a few songs. Okay, because his name was mentioned as one of the producers, as top producer type. So,
Yeah,
so yeah, she blinded me with science. Well, he blinded her with synth,
yeah,
and
yeah.
it didn't translate. It's absorbing and shit shock value for me that I can't even wrap my head or ear around with lyrics like that. It's hard. You know, I've listened to it twice now, since, and that's probably the third in my lifetime. And I would say that the study in musical era and fit it'll probably never come back to me unless we're going to do some sort of study on it. You know what I mean? Like use it as a control substance of like what you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Number 18, Mingus. I thought for sure I was going to go back to that record and go, now that I'm a more of a jazz guy, I'm going to love it. Happy birthday? Really? That's how you start I mean, I know it was his older than birthday, but the recording of that is awful. It has no point. This is a collaborative effort with some top-notch jazzies who they're
Yeah,
not even playing that well. It's not even front and center. It seems like they're in the back room and she's off to this other side.
yeah.
You know,
They didn't need to include that song on that record.
no. But when you see the people are on this list, you're like, that's a big surprise to
Yeah,
this being. And there's a lot of stopping and chatter and like they were just hanging out, eating cheese, and I just no. So that's 18. 17. Yes, Don Juan's Reckless Daughter. Uh, it's odd having that album there because I'm a jazz fusion lover, but this vocal into an ambitious musical project doesn't. That's why most jazz that's predominantly successful and game changing has no vocal. You think of Miles Davis, John
yeah,
Coltrane,
right.
and I know what you wanted. It seems uncomfortable and disjointed in flow. Reckless, is that one of the songs I think on there?
Yeah,
And
yep.
she not in the Bryan Adams way. Um, my number 16. Okay, so this is where we're a little bit. I'm my ear different than yours in some cases. Taming the Tiger. I didn't know where to put this record. It was the last one that I was trying to move around in here. And there's an interesting tuning mechanism they use on the guitar here. This is like her
Yep.
16th album, so it's got to be late 90s, I would think.
It was 88.
88. Oh, okay, 88. So yeah, that's right. It's kind of like intercoastal. Like the most of the record feel has that Jimmy Buffett wanted to get in on the action, but Jimmy's not on the record. But Man from Mars, definitely like the best track for me on that
Yeah,
record.
yep.
It's one that stuck with me still to this day, and that song sticks with her later, or actually earlier. So or no, redoing it. It comes up again on another album. I'm pretty sure the cover she does, or maybe it's on both sides now. She does Man from Mars. But yeah, that one I was the tuning there. It almost like how people get offended by Metallica's Saint Anger. Sometimes I felt like she wanted to give me a tropical thing, but it never got there. Uh,
Okay.
and then my 15 is Wild Things Run Fast.
Hmm.
This has an interesting like a Geffen type of feel to me. Like when Neil Young did his stint of electric records. There are moments where I feel the adult contemporary attempt is there, but it's modestly lost to the lack of instrumental work that matters. And she's normally really good with instrumental work.
Hmm.
Things are so far in the background again. It's like she sang and they played and they weren't together. And that pop progressive rock, you do a progressive rock song and you go, I want a vocalist. and you get Lionel Richie. I don't know what that was about. He's not a progressive pop guy, but
Yeah.
anyway, but I fault the 80s more so than her. It's hard on me always because the 80s are tough on me, but I will say this, that keyboard soaked, crudded up ladies man. Oh, but I'm gonna come back to it. Come back to it. Back to you.
All right. So what are we on? 14, right?
14. Yep.
Okay. So 14 is Travelogue.
Okay.
And that was a double record that preceded Both Sides Now. Or orchestral versions of and different takes on some of her best songs. I think it was a beautiful record. It's really interesting. And again, I'll allude to it was more orchestral than Both Sides Now, which had an orchestra. But like I said, to me, it was like she was singing with the Duke Ellington Orchestra on Both Sides Now, where this is totally orchestral. I like the different takes on her songs, and again, features some of the best. Herbie Hancock and Wayne Shorter along for that ride again.
Right.
Along with at that time would have been her ex-husband Larry Klein.
Oh, that's right.
Who's playing bass, and Billy Preston's even playing some B3 on that record. So that would be Travelogue is 14. 13 would be Taming the Tigger. And I enjoyed that record, I think, more than you did. But look who's there again on this record: Wayne Shorter, and Larry Klein, and then the great session guitar player Michael Landau played on this record too.
Yes,
and
he shows up on a lot of records.
He sure does.
I don't think he left the studio. I think he had a house next door.
Yeah. First time I ever heard his name was playing on a John Lennon record in the mid '70s. So you mentioned the Man from Mars.
Yeah.
That's a really good song. And actually, they wanted Joni to sing this song in the movie Grace of My Heart, but she refused. So they got another artist, Kristen Vigard. But that's my number 13. I'll flip the page here. 12. My number 12 is from released February of '91, Night Ride Home, which was their last record from Geffen. Great song, Coming from the Cold, is on that album, which is just a brilliantly written song. And Wayne Shorter's on this one too, and so is Michael Landau. My number 11 would be her record that she put out in October of '94, Turbulent Indigo. It's her 15th album. The cover art is fantastic. It's Joni it's Joni as Vincent Van Gogh, and it won a Grammy for the best pop album that year. Which would have been the Grammys in '96 maybe, because of the release date was October '94, so it's probably the Grammys in '96. And this album, Turbulent Indigo, kind of went back to her earlier albums. It was more acoustic driven, and the title track's great. The song Borderline is really good. And then the song she wrote with David Crosby, Yvette in English, is a fantastic song. So that's my number 11. And we're doing 10 now?
Yeah, 10.
Okay. Her 13th album, released in '88, Chalk Mark in a Rainstorm. She does duets with many people on this record. Peter Gabriel's there on My Secret Place, Willie Nelson and Cool Water, Tom Petty and Dancing Clown, and I won't mention Billy Idol on that song because I'm not a fan of his.
Yeah.
And then Don Henley on Snakes and Ladders.
And he also did backup vocals on a track too, I think, on there too.
Yeah. So Chalk Mark in a Rainstorm, that's my number 10.
Okay, my number 14, and this is where I'm gonna be different. Again, we were talking before we started, and the Hissing of Summer Lawns was the first album I picked up when I went back to this exercise, because I looked at an album cover and said, that's the one, I'll go with that one. And then, so this album seems the most dated in her catalog to me. It seems like it was recorded prior to those that came before it. It had some, I don't know. It felt, for me, I just remember my parents and that Solid Gold dance. And that's what's stuck in the back of my head. Rhinestone dance floors, guitar lick that everyone was plagiarizing the hell out of at the time. Some sort of foggy kitty cat psychedelic thing too, dripping the music, which it didn't seem right to me. Because what I was doing was first record I grabbed, right? And I'm remembering Joni the Blue, Joni the, I'm like, okay, why am I? So that's where this one went to 14. But then I started, there's a jazz element adding itself in here, right? So this is where it's starting to add in. And I don't think and I'm pretty sure that was the last time she ever did scat. So obviously that's it. Okay, so Chalk Marks in a Rainstorm. God, I wanted to love this record to put it higher. It's got Don Henley, it's got Tom Petty, Billy Idol. This is an 80s ending horror scene, which was washed away by heavy rainstorm. Cool Water's good. And most of the Gabriel edition thing, it seemed like, that was good. The Tom Petty Billy Idol thing, I don't know who decided that mishmash. Like too much is too much, right? Although maybe he stopped by and said, please let me, please let me. Please let me. But my number 12 is it Hejira or Hejira? Hejira. Okay. This is probably not a favorable position for this album, but how it went to me.
No.
It's wordy description that reminded me of Stephen King, where I'm waiting to get to it, and it's something you have to endure, and for some reason I wasn't enduring. There's no catch, hook, or melody. There's melody, but there's no catch or hook. But I love Blue Hotel Room. that song. I got it. So that's where that is. It's not a favorable position, but for me, that's how it landed in here. Again, as we talked about at the beginning, these are albums that you have to sit with. You have to go through.
We'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Right? Yeah, because it's definitely going to be higher for you. Shine is my 11. This is a fine farewell of an album of new material, and one reimagination, I think. The music is orchestrated beautifully, giving a strong nod to the jazz environment, obviously, but also not afraid to let the instruments represent her folk and folk country past too, which she could have easily dropped off. This Place is an excellent example of that togetherness of those environments. All the instrumentation is incredibly well done. James Taylor, James on there. Hannah and the Night at the Iguana have modern guitar additional work too. I kind of felt, I think Peter Gabriel was doing a bit of tinkering. That's what I felt like he was in. No, he's not in it, but I felt like this is like that Iguana one should have been in a club scene in Miami Vice. So what about the reimagined song there? It's an interesting play. It kind of gave it like a Jason Mraz kind of feel for that particular song. Won't name the song. In an interview with Amanda Ghost, all right, who had one solo album, a fantastic solo record, and then became
I worked that record.
A record exec and her own record company, did all that. Now she's making movies, I think. She said Joni told her the song Bad Dreams came from a quote from her grandson.
Yes.
Who she promised that if she made any money profits on it, she'd give it to him. Obviously that, it didn't really happen, but yeah, good thing. That kid's got I like that. So he's, my number 10 is Travelogue. It's a better reimagining of several songs, and it starts down that better jazz road. While it doesn't hold true to her past and the folkiness, timelessness there, it does showcase a vocal that could drive a song in any genre, I think.
Yeah.
Except synth. Just the synth just doesn't do it for me. And remember that dud from Lionel Richie? Yeah. Way better here. Even Mingus's God Must Be a Boogeyman was way better here. It was, hell yes, that's how you do it. So that's my 10.
Okay.
Back to you.
Number 9, record I worked from October of '82. Wild Things Run Fast. Cover art by Joni again. This is the first album I worked from her. I was excited, and it's her 11th LP. And you mentioned Sting. She had said that this album, when she first heard The Police, that it influenced her writing on this album.
Okay.
And Underneath the Streetlight is really, it's a poppy record.
Yes, it's a pop.
There's you going from like doing these jazz records, and then her first record with David Geffen, who, she was no stranger to David Geffen, because he started Asylum Records, which she was part of that too for a while.
Yeah.
And so Underneath the Streetlights is great. Be Cool is a really good song, and I really like the song Flat Tires.
Something Flat Tires, right? Something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't think of the total.
Yeah.
It's a weird title.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dream Flat Tires.
Dream Flat Tires. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my number 9. My number 8, it would be her debut album, Songs to a Seagull. Debut album produced by David Crosby. They knocked it out in like a month. I think it took to record that record. It was just her and her guitar and piano, and he wanted to record the vocals with her. He set up a mic on the strings of the piano, and he wanted to sing in that through that, which was probably not a great idea. So that didn't work. She wound up re-recording her vocals. But the title track's great. I Had a King is great. And then one of her first signature tunes, Night in the City, is pretty phenomenal as well. My number 7 would be her second album, Clouds. And it's another album she did the cover for, and it's her first album that she solely produced. And so, which is back in 1969 when that album came out.
That's unusual.
That's right, unheard of. You let an artist produce her second album. But boy, what songs! Chelsea Morning, Song to an Aging Children Come, and of course Both Sides Now, which is where the album title came from, Clouds. So that would be number 7. Number 6 would be her, and now it's getting into the meat of it, from the first record, for me. Number 6 would be her album that was released at the end of '72 in November, For the Roses. That was her first album for Asylum Records. It's her 5th album. That album happens to be in the National Recording Registry in the Library of Congress, which is kind of cool in itself.
Yeah.
Right?
And you wouldn't think that would be the one.
No. So here she does the Blue record, where songs inspired by her relationship with Graham Nash, and For the Roses, a good chunk of the songs are inspired by her relationship back then with James Taylor.
Yeah.
So she goes Nash to Taylor, so pretty good. But Cold Blue Steel and Sweet Fire, what a song. The title track, Lessons in Survival, Blonde in the Bleachers, and then she had a hit with You Turn Me On, I'm a Radio. So For the Roses, it's For the Roses. A lot of people don't, I think that's an album people sometimes forget about, because with all her albums, people go like, oh, this was great, and then they go into her jazz stage, and I think For the Roses is a phenomenal record, and I don't know, but you'd think a record that's in the National Recording Registry wouldn't be forgotten, but not a lot of people put that album up there, but it should be. And my number 5 would be The Hissing of Summer Lawns, her 7th album, released in November of '75. She did the cover of that album. It was the follow-up to the great Court and Spark record, which came out a year earlier. Title track is great. In France, They Kiss on Main Street, Edith and the Kingpin, Shadows and Light. So many good songs on that record. I remember I was in college in Syracuse, and when that album came out, I bought that and Neil Young's Zuma on the same day.
Wow.
And
You didn't need
so
to buy anything else that year.
and so like that album, that was an extension of Court and Spark. Her backing band on a lot of that album was Tom Scott and the LA Express, but she also had the Jazz Crusaders backed her up on
that. Okay, the Jazz
this
Crusaders
record too.
Yeah.
So yeah, good stuff. So that's number 5.
Okay. All right. My number 9 for the Roses. Another right down folk Main Street. The use of harmonica and the link to her vocal, the delivery, it's honest as the day is old. The production matches, keeping the focus on her vocal, on the words, and allowing the rhythm to carry it a bit. And there was no odd harmonies. Farther back because it's a little one-sided in the pace, maybe. I don't know, but the piano on "See You Sometime" reminded me of how much the following people are influenced by Joni Mitchell.
Yeah.
That would be Tori Amos, Sarah Celine of Canada, as well as the vocal presentation that Joni reaches and presents here has a lot of Alanis Morissette. So obviously 2 of those people Canadian, just to add that too. My number 8, I love The Night Ride Home. I like the record because it seems to showcase more of the overall musicianship, and the recording features nuances of Joni, of vocal, guitar, keyboard, percussion. She's on oboe. She's playing the omnichord. I don't even know what the hell that is. While there are some harsh topics here, because this album's a little dark, obviously Night Ride Home. I also there's a different pitch to her voice suddenly to me, and she realized that
it's deeper.
Yeah, deeper, darker, a little rebellish in a Pretenders kind of vibe. Maybe you want to go there. Only Joy in Town. Wow.
Yeah.
2 gray rooms, smoky jazz, vocal delivery tone, and the depiction, the strings. It's a nice record, and she reaches some pitches that, she's not Bette Midler, but to be honest, who needs to be Bette Midler? I love that honest approach and not going for it all, but there are a couple harmonies that didn't work for me. They cheapened it a bit, but obviously they're still clinging to those 80s principles of recording. Sometimes you can't give it.
Yeah.
It's like Def Leppard couldn't give up Mutt Lange. Well, my numbers, what am I, 7? Yeah, Turbulent Indigo. Now here's the best of the 90s here, in my opinion. The themes and the style and the liberal love for undoing everything going on, even though their hands have blood on them. It's an interesting thing, but she delivers it. This was a alt folk attempt, really, I thought.
Yep.
And a great gem in the catalog. It has a dated persona, but sex kills, baby. And I'll leave it at that. Number 6 for me is Ladies of the Canyon. It's a well-delivered acoustic record on that edge of it. Nothing too shape-shifty, kind of a play it safe, but you get, Big Blue Taxi and you get Woodstock. And those are they elevate the marksmanship of the record and change it just enough to give you that. I loved it. And then my number 5 is Court and Spark. This is a remarkable album. And for 1974, it's insane, kind of. Sort of like Exile on Main Street. We get a real top-notch piano throughout, special touches and larger scope of recording process than we'd experienced a bit in the past. I felt like this was her Elton John, Bernie Taupin record in songwriting. It felt like she had two heads, two writing ideas in her head, and it just Raised on Robbery, Troubled Child. They're bombastic as hell. It's just I love it. I love it. I guess I thought you're gonna push yourself from there on, right? And that's not kind of what happened. Like, because then Court and Spark reads into what you're saying, right? To hiss, is it hissing somewhere
She
along?
was pushing herself though.
Yeah, but just not where I was expecting.
Not
it
to
go,
our
right?
liking, but she was pushing herself. Yeah.
So there you go. All right, this is the 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, hold on a second, because you know what? My bride said she might want to be part of the end here.
Okay, I dig it.
Who's who's probably a bigger Joni fan than me.
Oh well, she's got to get in. Got to get in.
Let me see. All right, so number 4 is my wife's favorite Joni album, Hygieia. It was her 8th album. She continues the jazz greats on that record. Jocko's playing bass, Larry Carlton's playing guitar, John Guerin's drumming, and she wrote a good chunk of this album when she was on the road with Dylan's Rolling Thunder Review, and some wonderful songs on this record. It's independent on the mood, 4, 3, 2, 1 could change, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But this album features the great song Coyote. Amelia, Fury Sings the Blues, the title track, and the great closing song Refuge of the Roads. It's to me it's these 4 that I'm going to mention are all perfect records for me. Do you have anything else to add for Hygieia?
Yeah.
From the background.
It's just very personal.
Yeah.
It's very beautiful. I love the song Hygieia. It will be played at my funeral.
Is that
it's so damn depressing, but at the same time, it's so beautiful. And what is a better line than when you think about your life, or even at your funeral, I guess, when you're, quote, chicken scratching for your immortality. God, I love that line. And that's enough to say about Hygieia.
Okay, all right.
I love that. That's a great line. Great line.
Yeah.
One of my favorite lines. That one other one I'm just thinking, well, Joni, it's not from this album, but it's one of my favorite lines she writes too is I'm a lonely painter. I live in a box of paints. What a great line that is. Jeez.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure there are more than that too, as if you could go on.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
There's line after line. Yeah.
All right, number 3 be the album that came out at the beginning of '74, the great Court and Spark. Her 6th album. It's really the first time she really morphed into like some jazz overtones, and backed by the great Tom Scott and the LA Express, who she took out on the road with her. They recorded the live album Miles of Isles after that. The title track is great. Free Man in Paris, classic song. Raised on Robbery, another classic Joni song. And of course, the big hit off that album, Help Me. So again, Court and Spark to me is like a perfect Joni record as well. Number 2 for me would be
Well, you just butting in with some too.
Okay.
You mentioned Help Me. It was one of the 3 songs I'd sing to my daughter every single night when I put her to bed when she was first born, for the first couple years of her life.
Will said grandchild get the same treatment?
I hope so.
All right.
My voice probably isn't as beautiful, but
you'll do it.
But yes,
I think you're fine.
Yeah, there we go.
Congratulations again, by the way.
Thank you.
Well, another great song too. Well, just shooting off songs, but Louie is my child. That's a great one too.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sarah.
My number 2 would be Ladies of the Canyon.
Mm.
You know, it's funny. Joni wrote Woodstock, and she never got there. She was stuck on the thruway. You know, so but the day after Woodstock, you could go to YouTube and watch the Dick Cavett show from back then, where he had all the survivors from Woodstock, and then he interviewed Joni and said, you weren't there, but she hadn't even written the song yet. But man, that's a phenomenal record. She painted the cover of that album as well. But again, classic, great songs. Morning Morgantown is on there, the title track, the song Willie, which she wrote about Graham Nash, and For Free, another great song that David Crosby did multiple times. The first time he recorded the For Free song was when he produced the Haphazard Birds Reunion album in '74. And he also did it on and that was a title track, I think, for his very last album. It was called For Free.
Yes, it was. Yep.
And then you get 3 incredible songs on side 2. You get Big Yellow Taxi, Woodstock, and The Circle Game. So, Ladies of the Canyon would be number 2 for me.
Right.
And then number 1 is no surprise, because I've said it on this show before, but the June '71 masterpiece, Blue, was her 4th album. That album, when I heard it when it first came out, and, when you're going through your teenage years and you're riding that emotional roller coaster, and when you're in that depressed state, what do? Well, let's pull out the Joni Blue album and get even more depressed. But what a incredible record. There's heartfelt songs that, she and Nash, like My Old Man, Carrie's on that record, the title track, California, A Case for You, and then, the song that multiple people have covered for, is a Christmas song, River, is on that album as well. And so that's as perfect a Joni record as can be. And Blue's actually been called one of the, I don't know how high it's gotten in various charts.
I'm fairly certain it's in the top. I think it's in the top 10.
Yeah, it's as it should be. So
either that or it's at 11 or something like that. It's really close, close. And there's no question. It's
one of the greatest albums of all time.
Correct.
For sure. Yeah. So there you go.
All right. I will bring us home here a little with mine. My number 4 is Clouds. I love the power of her voice, and it commands from the start of the record to the beginning or to the end. This is delivery. This is close to it. This kind of tells you this is the best singer. This is the best songwriter. Even then, the sparseness is brilliant. There's an echo without effect. It's just her. You know what I mean? There's nobody with an echo button or bullshit of that nature.
Right.
Pay attention. The troubled troubadour lament is continuing, and that's just how it's going to be. There's even a growl in it, and she's not doing that Cookie Monster thing. But anyway, also please note, Both Sides Now. That's coming again. Number 3, Song to a Seagull. Songs to a Seagull song. Oh my God.
Song to a Seagull.
Yeah. This is again the sound of early brilliance in songwriting, taking a single cab ride and destroying a man. Poor Nathan Lafreniere. He's not a hockey player, but I bet he wishes he was. I guess he didn't want to be driving the cab that day. Dear Lord, she writes a song. It's haunting and everything about it. It's beautiful, acoustically recorded. Although most artists would have been intimidated by recording in a folk of this nature, it's just her vocal and the band trembling kind of behind her. Small details handed out with a little a little pressure maybe by the producer. I don't even know.
No,
But
David Crosby produced
yeah,
that
Crosby, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah. Did you know that Cactus Tree is the most played song from the record? And it might be the
Wow.
most played closing track on all of her 19 records, except
Really?
for Both Sides Now. Yeah, that's
Okay.
coming again. So my number 2 is Both Sides Now.
Wow.
I wish you would have done more of this. Orchestrated vocal beauty. Yes, the Duke Ellington Orchestra or whoever you wanted to put in that vein. I think she could have delivered like Billie Holiday.
Oh,
Really
yeah.
do. And I think she was undersold in that, but I think it's very hard for her to let go of the folk end of it. I think if there's a thing called folk jazz, ladies and gentlemen, she's it. She did
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, this was huge, worthy, big band sound delivery. There was a chance in this that she could have done a Bond film and been one of the Bond singers, honestly. I mean, this is just jazz orchestra bop right between the sultry eyes.
Yeah.
And of course, my number 1 is Blue. If you do a ranking and you don't put Blue in number 1, wow. I mean, watch Joni would do an album that and not put Blue in number 1, right?
Yeah.
It's quintessentially, it's a remarkable record. She made the female folk artist a household name.
Yeah.
It's groundbreaking. It's so well produced. It is a perfect album, and there is not
It is.
an album, I don't think, female wise close to it. I'm pretty sure it's better than anything Bob Dylan. Maybe
Better than anything that Bob Dylan ever made, huh?
album wise, full album. You put all of Bob Dylan together. I don't know. I have to listen again and get, because sometimes it's just all about his vocal.
It's
Right?
better than Bob Dylan's 71 album. I'll say that.
Yeah, I would have to go back and just, geez, if I was going to say greatest folk albums of all time, would Blue be at number 1?
Could be.
It just in orchestration and more things going on in it, possibly. It's just usually his vocal, barely guitar, and then the harmonica gets in there in between.
Yeah. Well, you're talking about, maybe the 2 best songwriters ever.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Place her in the music industry, in your mindset and in the music multiverse. This is legendary, right?
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Right?
I mean, like I said at the beginning, she stands alone.
Yeah.
Who preceded her, right? Joan Baez, Judy Collins.
Yeah, in that if you talk about all women, Ella Fitzgerald, and that's about
Right.
it.
Right.
Billie Holiday.
Right. Well, she went. I remember reading that she went to when she was living in Canada as a young girl, and she went to see Buffy St. Marie.
Okay, that would make an impression.
And seeing Buffy St. Marie, catapulted what she wanted to do. After seeing Buffy. So yeah. So there's a show, a Buffy St. Marie show.
Well, you got it. You know how well my Canadian shows are done.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I don't know why they don't. They don't. I love Canada, but they don't like me. All right, well, it's okay.
But yeah, I like she's and she's been an artist that is beating her own drum. She because she's Joni Mitchell, she can do whatever she wants. And is it all great? No, but that's okay. You can say that about any artist that has been around for 60 years.
Yeah.
That everything they've done has not been great, but her greatness shines above most others.
Yep.
And that's that. And if you have not, in the listening audience out there that's watching this show, if you're too young and have never heard any of these records, then go, run. Don't don't walk, run and get these records because they're an important part of music history and they need to be heard.
Yeah, and they influenced a lot of the people you're listening to today.
Yes.
For sure. Mary, anything else?
But I don't really know. I mean, close friends and everything, but I don't really know a lot of people that are that into her and her music.
It's
You
true.
know?
It's true.
Yeah.
I mean, as
what it
wonderful
is
she is.
yeah, they're hooked on an album. Okay, Blue,
Mhm.
right? Or even Court and Spark, we'll say, right?
Mhm.
But they don't know the depth of it. Their attention span to that moved on to other things that got in the way
Right.
of that,
Right.
right? Because she didn't play along with the record industry and go, oh, I'm gonna do the pop now. Oh, I'm gonna do this
Yeah.
now. You know,
Mhm.
and she went from folk to jazz. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Jazz has never been at the forefront of music since the 50s.
Oh,
You know,
sure.
Right. Yeah.
Sure.
in musicianship, and this is like back to the beginning. As a musician, it was always at the forefront, right?
Yeah.
They,
Mhm.
and I think as listeners and people just turn on the radio, that is not, they're looking for catchy. And you can still do catchy jazz. There's no question against Stanton Moore, those kind of people, and Sting and the Police and all that.
Nora Jones.
Yeah, Nora Jones. There's all that, but they know where that all came from and how it stems. And as
Right.
musicians, they look to Joni. Musicians
Well,
will
yeah.
always say Joni.
They have. You know, when I was working Seal's records, Seal would say, I remember him telling me like, man, you got to work Joni's records? Yeah. Or, you know, when you have an artist as prolific and as brilliant as Prince was, and Prince tips his hat to Joni.
Yep.
So,
Maynard
yeah.
Maynard Keenan, a tool.
Yeah. Like, you know, look at all the jazz cats that wound up playing with her with all those records. And then, you know, Wayne Short, or, you know, Wayne goes, you know, winds up playing on multiple records. You know, Herbie does like a great record. That Letters to Joni album is that won the best album of the year.
It did. It won
Grammys.
album of the year, and it
Yeah.
deservedly won. You know what? Might be the only time in a while that they got it right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was the first time in a long time that a jazz record won record of the year.
Sure is. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not been done since.
Nope. Nope. Sarah Celine, who I talked about from Canada, she just she's done multiple tours with orchestra and doing Joni Mitchell nights with different themes and etc. And it sells out every time.
Cool.
Yeah, there are tons and tons of like you said, get to the record store, and they're not pricing these things out of the market.
No.
Grab an old record, you can get it $7-8, used. Brand new stuff, yeah, it's gonna run you, but and you can start anywhere, but you should probably start at the beginning because that's the truest of stories. If as an honest musician that she is, I would tell you always start, because she didn't lose that at all. She didn't.
No. But if you want to even delve even deeper, like songs for a Seagull, the first record, but the first Archives box set, the live stuff from 63 to 67,
Okay,
is before Songs from a Seagull even came out. So you hear her in her purest form early on. All four of those archive sets are wonderful.
So, what did you think of the Joni Mitchell catalog? It's 19 albums. Yes, send us your list of the 19 in your order. Give us some feedback on why you love the albums you do, when you first got into Joni, and where she rests in your music multiverse. We're on the web at beyondyourradio.com, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, of course. We've got articles, videos, podcasts. One of these days I'll get around to that. It's all about albums, bands, artists, anything we can get our hands on. Go Beyond Your Radio with us, a real music appreciation channel. Later this week, I'll be doing Keep It Dark and Aranzi Pazuzu.
God bless you.
Roll with me on that one. I'm telling you, it's a dark place, but beautifully done progressive metal. Anyway, thanks for watching and happy listening.